if you're not where you want to be financially, you could look at a guy who's a multi-millionaire or a billionaire and think, oh, he just because he doesn't have any monetary problems, he doesn't have any problems. But I realized by talking to those guys that a lot of the time, especially entrepreneurship and financially, you can get to an incredible level of success and it's just going to create more problems.
Anyone out there who might be crushing it in one area of life and neglecting your health or neglecting your sleep or neglecting your relationships at home, if you're doing great at work, but everything else is suffering or just subpar, the hard thing for you might be to go and make it every day that you spend quality time with your family, or make it every day that you go and exercise. I love the way that Lawrence has done this. So thank you for the nugget of wisdom. I mentioned it earlier. I'm super curious because I just ran so far my first marathon back here in Charlotte a few months ago. And now I'm meeting a man who's run a marathon on every continent. So can you tell us a little bit of two things about your first marathon and then your Antarctica marathon? I'm curious about those two experiences for you, Lawrence.
Well, congratulations on your first. Marathons are hard. Sometimes I'll run, 6 miles or something, and I'm thinking, Jesus, how do I run 20 miles first and then 6 to finish? I'm like, this 6 feels hard, and 26 is hard. So congratulations. Marathons are not easy. I even heard from an Olympic marathon champion, and he said the same thing. He's like, 26.2 miles is really hard. It's not easy. So kudos to you. The first marathon, actually, I just had my first pro MMA fight, and I was going to Thailand on a vacation, and there just happened to be the Bangkok Marathon when I'm there. And I thought, you know what? I've always wanted to do a marathon. Screw it. Let's do that. So I did that. And the goal was sub 4 hours. And I did it just under 4 hours. And it was so hard. It was so humid. We started, I think, at 3 a.m. And even so it was just, the sun was rising as we were finishing, but it was so humid and so hard. And I just fell in love with it. And it kind of brought me full circle. I think at the time I was 30. It brought me full circle to my youth. I used to run the mile for school, the 1,500 meters. And it brought back all these memories. And so for me, ever since then, I've done a lot of running. And for me, it's meditation. So a lot of people would say, do you meditate? And I'm trying to do a bit more meditation. I'm not a huge meditator, but for me, running is meditation. It's moving meditation. And actually, Thich Nhat Hanh, he had the very famous monk, I think it was Vietnamese, the Buddha. He wrote a lot on Buddhism, and he had his retreat actually right by where my grandma used to live in the French wine country. I went there many years ago. It's so beautiful. And his big thing was he used to do walking meditation. And so he believed that just sitting there and trying to meditate wasn't good. He liked to walk and then meditate that way. And so for me, it's kind of like running is my meditation. So after that, I did a couple more marathons, and then I was turning 35, and I just broken up with an ex-girlfriend. And there was a race I always wanted to do. It's called the Two Oceans Ultramarathon in Cape Town, South Africa. And it was 35 miles. And what is the chances that the race was on my 35th birthday? I was like, okay, I got to do that. So I booked a ticket there. I went to Cape Town. I did that, and that was an incredible experience. Just the beautiful energy. They were singing songs before the start, and South Africa has an incredible running tradition. There's a few very famous ultramarathon races there, and it's the running community there is very beautiful. And then I realized, I was like, man, I've done 4 of the 7 continents. I've kind of got to do all the 7 now. So I did a couple more. And then I was like, man, maybe I'll be the first black belt to have run a marathon on every continent. I was like, I don't know anyone else that's done it, but they might be out there. I just haven't heard of them. So I was like, okay, how do I do a marathon in Antarctica? And there's a few packages where you can do. So Antarctica, you have the continent, and then you kind of have the surround. There's a few islands kind of off Antarctica, and technically it's all considered Antarctica. But the islands, so you have some packages that go to the islands. But for me, that wasn't the real Antarctica. It looks like, it's kind of muddy and it's brown. If you go there in the summer, there's barely any snow. I'm like, that's not really Antarctica. So I found this package. It was kind of a private tour, and there was only 6 of us that went on this package. And it wasn't an official race. I was the only one that did the marathon. But they had held a marathon there before, so they knew where to do it. And it was basically 4 laps, and the lap was, there's glaciers all around, so you have to be very careful. But there was a 4-mile runway that was on a solid point, and so they kind of had a route around the runway, and I did 4 laps, and that was a marathon. And it was incredible. Being there is like being in space. You're so remote. That trip was incredible, Matt, because I went there I went there with my wife, and the goal was to run a marathon. And it was very financially irresponsible. It was very expensive. And at the time, I was going through some tough times with this developer that I mentioned, screwed me over. So but I was like, you know what? You got a lifetime to earn money. You don't have a lifetime to do cool things. So I went there to run this marathon, to tick a box. What I didn't realize is that trip was really amazing. It's one of the most incredible weeks of both our lives. And there was two other couples there, one from Israel, one from Dubai. And they were incredibly successful CEOs. And just spending a week with them was really eye-opening. That we all became great friends. We're probably going to do some more trips together, the six of us. But just being around that kind of level of entrepreneurship and success. One of them had a company. He did the whole of waste management for the United Arab Emirates. He had 15,000 employees. And he was so overwhelmed with life. And he wanted to go to Antarctica to get away from everything, so he couldn't get bothered with his phone. And it was just so interesting, just talking to him, spending time with them, seeing that so many people we look at, if you're not where you want to be financially, you could look at a guy who's a multi-millionaire or a billionaire and think, oh, he just because he doesn't have any monetary problems, he doesn't have any problems. But I realized by talking to those guys that a lot of the time, especially entrepreneurship and financially, you can get to an incredible level of success, and it's just going to create more problems. So we have to be very careful about, what we wish for, and we shouldn't just chase. Like, I really like what you said earlier. You said maybe the athlete who it's easy for him to work out for 2 hours a day, but what's not easy for him is to put his phone away, not take work calls, and be present with his wife and his two kids, or whatever the story is. And so what I always tell people is, I want to be a black belt in life. I don't want to be a black belt just in jiu-jitsu. I don't want to be just a black belt in finance. I want the analogy of, I want to be a black belt in life. And in order to be a black belt in life, that means that I want to have a great marriage, a great relationship with my wife, a great relationship with my son. I want to have a good circle of friends. I want to spend time with people that I want to be around. I want to be successful in my career, but not at the expense of other things. I want to put integrity above money. I've left so much money on the table in my life because I like helping people out. Like, I use the real estate example. I'm always doing stuff. I'm helping out friends for free, or I'm even, I've given up commission to close deals because I'm not trying to chase a check. I'm trying to help people out as well. So just trying to think about, if your life is a wheel and all these different aspects are spokes, which spokes are good and which spokes are kind of short and need some nurturing and attention. And, we all have the same 24 hours in the day. And, maybe one of my biggest problems is I don't sleep enough because I'm trying to maximize my life, and I'm always trying to do things, and I'm a bit of a workaholic, but I like to do fun things and do family time. And it's easy just to not sleep enough. And then I'm kind of grumpy. I'm not my best self. So it's trying to find what that aspect is. And the beautiful thing about it, I don't know if you find this beautiful, Matt, but I do, is it's a never-ending process of calibration and trying to learn yourself and learn what really makes you happy. And, sometimes you're going to have to realize that people don't bring out the best in you, or they have certain tendencies you don't want to be around. So you're kind of spending less time with them. And it can be very difficult because a lot of people, I think a lot of entrepreneurs too, we tend to be people pleasers. So it's hard to say no to things. And then you realize that every time you say yes to something, you're actually saying no to something else, whether it's implicit or not implicit.